With great sense of delight, I welcome you to today's edition of Africa Discourse, where we x-ray issues emanating from Africa and how to do justice in terms of having good governance in Africa. Africa as a continent has been bedeviled by basic challenges. We have issues about power, we have issues about unemployment, we have several issues. But this time, we're going to be zeroing on Somalia. Just a few days back, Somalia had a new president, an opportunity to go on a third run of election, indirect election, where clans bring about representatives as lawmakers, and then having about 328 lawmakers that would decide who takes the election as per the presidency level. That was where the incumbent president in the person of Farmajo, Ibrahim Abdullahi Mohammed, won the election in 2017. And from 2017 till date, Mohammed Abdullahi has been in governance. And it took over from the previous president who ruled from 2012 to 2017 in the person of Hassan Muhammadu. And Hassan Muhammad has been in the race trying to see how he can get back that position. And basically, he was able to clinch this just May 15. And we look at this. My name is Philip Omo Gyukwa, and I'm your host on this edition. And don't forget, we basically tie with analysts, and I'm having a political economist with me in the person of Ibrahim Momo. Good to have you join me, Ibrahim.
Thank you for having me. Good morning. Good afternoon, very distinguished viewers.
Okay. So you've been following events as they unfold in Somalia. Somalia being the African-horn country that has been faced with drought, and most of the swaths of the country have been under the control of Al-Shabaab. Now, we have this great opportunity to welcome the former president who was taken over by the previous one, but he was able to clinch the office back, and now in the person of Hassan Mohammed. Now, what do you make of this victory? Because Mogadishu has been thrown into sharing, joyful notes where, Somalians have been coming out, shooting guns in the air, in celebration for this great victory of Hassan. What do you make of this?
Well, the first thing I make of it has to do with the fact that people they are happy to take a break from the 5 years of misrule of Famoje, because it appears that in the period he was president, a couple of things have happened. One, the Al-Shabaab militant group has taken over more large swaths of countryside, such that it's only really the capital, Mogadishu, that the current president can claim to have effective control over. And that's one. Secondly, the high level of, what I could call the CDF, IMV, the corruption, the famine, the political violence, political instability, and of course the violence that are taking over the economy. And then the fact that the immediate past president, when it was time for him to conduct elections, he started all manners of rigmarole.
Delay tactics.
Delay for another 15 months.
That seems to be inherent in Africa, politicians.
Well, it's inherent not only in Africa, but we thought Donald Trump, he's not African, so, I'm not one of those, I'm a Pan-Africanist. I don't think it's only in Africa we have bad governance. We have bad leaders all over. In the US today, under Biden, people are complaining. So just to put that on our side, it's not only about Africa. But I think that it is his inability to rein in the violence, particularly from Al-Shabaab militant group, the fact that he himself is guilty of bad governance, and that he attempted a coup against the people when he refused to conduct elections when it was due last year, and tried to hold on to it. So some of these things played into the hands of the opposition, and such that today he is no more present.
Okay. Well, we follow this, and for the very fact that Somalia is a Sunni Muslim country, and we have issues about drought, and What really baffles me was the deadline set by the IMF, International Monetary Fund, giving a deadline for May 17, at which the country should have a new federal government where we give authorities to the programs. Otherwise, they will lose funding. What do you make of this threat?
Well, it shows, you know, the level of depravity or bad governance prevalent in Somalia.
Yeah.
Because except for that deadline of May 17 that was set by the IMF for the $400 million aid package or loan that was due to be given, negotiated and due for approval, except for that deadline, that perhaps the elections would not have held. If somebody could hold up the elections for 15 months, he could have done more. But he knew that, and of course you saw that, if you're in a situation where there was so much famine and drought in the country, people were dying of hunger, animals were also dying of hunger.
Oh,
you see the pictures, very, very gory. Cows and cattle dying of hunger, of famine, you know. So if this could happen to animals, imagine what's happening to the human beings. So it shows the level the society was good. So he knew that his time was up. And the funny thing is that he tried to hold on to power. Even when eventually he had to conduct the elections, he still tried to hold on to power. He lost only at the third round of election by 214 votes to 110. You know, meaning that he still had at least a third of the members of both the Senate and the House of the People voting in his favor. I know. So I think that, as bad as it is, that was the game changer. The fact that IMF had given that deadline.
Thank you. Well, in case you're just joining us, it's Africa Discourse, and we're looking at Somalia's new president and what we have concerning economic recovery, how the Somalian new president and the person of Hassan Mohamud will gonna take this whole challenge in tackling issues concerning droughts, wars in the country, where a lot of persons are saying that he has a lot to really battle with. Well, we're going to be taking a short break, after which we'll extend the frontiers of this discussion. It's basically awesome to have you join me again while we had a break on Africa Discourse. I had the opportunity to be joined by a lecturer in the University of Benin and the Department of Political Science, a researcher, and it is Neville Obakedo. Thanks for joining me, Neville.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon to you as well.
Somalia is thrown into joy over the emergence of the new president in the person of Hassan Mohamud. What do you make of the victory claimed by Mohamud?
When you say that the Somalians are thrown into joy for the victory of Hassan
Mohamud, Sheikh
Mohamud, Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, I don't see the reason why they should be jubilating. Because the same people in 2017, they voted out Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, the same person, as president. So why the jubilation? Is it that they have discovered that they made a mistake by breaking the immediate past president, because the new president was inaugurated today.
Yeah.
So is it that they discovered that they committed political blunders that have consequences on the economy?
They woke up into reality.
So talking about the people of Somalia, their politics, their economy, it baffles me that the religion that's supposed to be a foundation for social engineering, it baffles me that people who grew up in the same environment, even though they are from different clans or different ethnic groups, that are supposed to live in harmony the way they made their forefathers living. It baffles me that these two things have become the undoing of the Republic, of the Federal Republic of Somalia, where some two regions have already broken away and they are just a force of stability by their own self-government that they have inaugurated, even though they have not been recognized as a republic by the international community. because the reason why I'm talking about religion and ethnic politics, after the overthrowment and the death of former president, military dictator then, Siad Barre, the country was plunged into a civil war.
It was never the same again.
Yes, and the civil war, if you look at it, you discover that they are rooted in ethnic, it was rooted in ethnic politics and religion. And the country is a predominantly Islamic.
It's Sunni Muslim country.
Yes. So, and I know that it's not only Somalia that are affected by this kind of issues.
Okay.
But people are supposed to learn. I'm coming to the economy aspect of well, you asked me a question about the jubilation. As I'm seeing them jubilating. The problem is that the president now that he has been re-elected, let me say it that way. He was a president before for 5 years. He has come back again now to come and be president.
Because they now saw what what he was made of.
Whatever mistake he made.
As per the difference they now had in the person of Farmajo.
So the mistake that he made as president before the emergence of Farmajo, you should try to avoid it. You should try to lay a strong egalitarian foundation for the take-off of the Somalia state, because Somalia is blessed with certain mineral resources. It may not be,
despite that it's faced with a drought.
Yes,
because
it may not be that
the aspect of the drought alone is a big challenge. Yes. Knowing that it depends solely on interventions, borrowings, I think that's also a setback.
The problem is that Somalia as a country that is located in the Horn of Africa.
Yeah.
It has the longest coastal line that is bordered by the Atlantic Ocean, Indian Ocean, I beg your pardon, and the Arabian Sea.
What's the benefit of that?
I'm coming to that, and the Gulf.
Yes.
The Gulf of Eden. The implication of that is that the maritime benefit of
it's enormous.
The Gulf of Eden, the coastline of the Indian Ocean, and the Arabian Sea is enough to power the economy of Somalia.
But obviously we are not saying that yet.
Now, that is on one aspect.
Okay.
Now, their failure to do so is because of the politics, just like we have politics here, we have politics elsewhere.
Political divisions.
Where politicians, instead of trying to make life better for their people, irrespective of the ethnic group that they are from, a man is elected as president, instead of being the president of all the ethnic groups put together at the central level, the president becomes the president of his ethnic group. And in that case, other ethnic groups will now be mustering the courage to challenge the government. The other day, the people of South Sudan, they were clamoring that they wanted freedom from North Sudan. Despite all the struggles for several years led by the Sudan People's Liberation Movement of late Colonel John Garang, immediately after the independence, President Siad Barre, who was the second in command to John Garang, started playing ethnic politics. And you now see now that a country that just emerged from another country after several years of civil war is plunged back to another civil war. There is no sense in that. And the enormous resources that they are supposed to harness for the betterment of the Southern Sudanese people is now hanging in the balance now like a balloon because of dirty politics. Politics of bestiality, politics of power. Let them know that I'm the president. Let them know that it is our region that is the majority or is dictating what is happening in our country. That is what is happening in Somalia. Now, Somalia as a country is supposed to harness the resources of the coastline to make sure that there's better life for the people of the country. You see the way they even elect their president. Clannish kind of a politics.
Yeah, with the third round of election.
Yeah, so you see that they have a lot of work to do, and the president now have a lot of work to do because he has learned from the mistake of his previous administration, and he has learned from the mistake of Farmajo, his predecessor in office now, and he must have learned from the mistakes of those who succeeded Siad Barre and the conflict that came up. Now, we know that militants are everywhere. Militants.
The Al-Shabaab militants.
Yes, we have fundamentalists. We have terrorists everywhere.
Yeah.
And I know that this man can reach out.
Well, let's see how that goes, because that's again another challenge, because analysts are saying that the same way the previous president, Abdullahi Mohammed, was not able to have a very good grip on the security apparatus that seem to be politicized as the years go by. Is the same challenge that the current president in Hassan may be faced with. Now, Ibrahim, do you see the possibility that Hassan may do something different from what the challenge that the previous president, Mohammed Abdullahi, had?
Well, the first thing to say is that the internal security of very many countries, particularly those of Africa, is manipulated by the powerful countries of the world. The internal security is not in the hands of the internal leaders or the domestic leaders, or at best, those ones who are masquerading in several countries, including Somalia, are the BS or apron strings, started apron strings of the powerful countries. For example, the issue of the IMF mandating a deadline for elections.
So you see that as a kind of form of a neo-colonialization?
It is what it is, neo-colonialism. At best, those kind of leaders are what we call political science compradors. They are there at the behest of very powerful forces outside of their shores.
Most especially when we now have the U.S. forces, coming into the country to help boost the national army. Isn't that a plus?
Which is even the core issue. The greatest challenge, more than any other, Dr. Neville did point out a couple of maritime advantages, ordinarily, that Somalia is supposed to have. But there cannot be development, there cannot be economic development, really, without security.
Without security.
Without security, it can't be. And when you look at the international community, which are heavily involved in the governance,
even in the national army
and of course the security of Somalia, at least the Somalia that we know, what you are seeing is that their core interest is the preservation of Mogadishu, the security of Mogadishu. And Somalia Mogadishu is just about 30% or 20% of the entire country. And who controls that is not their business. And they are not interested in legitimacy. The government that was there lost legitimacy a long time ago. If there was to be a referendum, it would have lost out. The government there outstayed, delayed the election by about 15 months, a year and 3 months. The international community did nothing about it. It was not an issue for them. The last government was, under its watch, Somalis were suffering from the worst kind of drought in over a decade, and extreme famine, the worst kind of famine possible. And the international community watched why those ones went going on. All the way. In fact, the election itself was held in a highly fortified military hangar, Air Force hangar, which is managed by international forces. So it shows a country where the leaders are tied to the apron strings of their foreign masters. If you can call them leaders at all, you say they are tied, but at best can say they are compradors. But those foreign leaders are not interested in good governance. They're not interested in economic development. They are not interested in legitimacy, in the popular will of the people.
Okay, will you also say that they are not interested in helping the country take over those SWATs that have been controlled by the terrorists?
They're not interested.
They are only interested
in the small, you see these ones all over Africa. Every time, look at Libya. Libya under Muammar Gaddafi, Libya today. Today's Libya, you have international community dividing the country, not the locals. So you have international community dividing the country too. There's what we call the UN recognized head of state, managing Tripoli and a few other regions. And you are seeing a military general, a member of the international community controlling the larger part of the country. That is how the international community, there's this concept of, promoting stability in the stars in the third world. Countries that could do well in the third world, the international community has a way of promoting stability in those countries. Two good examples is Somalia. Somalia had the potential to be Somalia and Congo DR and I mean, if you could add, if you go back to history, Libya had the potential of being about the most developed countries in the entire African region, Somalia and Congo DR, because it has huge mineral resources in the case of Congo DR, and it has a very large coastline, maritime advantages,
which is huge.
In fact, at the time, the most insecure place in the world was the Gulf of Aden.
Wow.
Which is the area around Somalia. It was the most insecure part of the world.
Is it because of the sea crimes that?
Yes, piracy and hijacking of kidnapping on the high sea.
Yeah.
That is the Somalia that the West, with all due respect.
So there are several black spots in those areas.
That is the area. So the reality is that if the international community stops its activities, its very, very deleterious activities of undermining territorial integrity, of national security, and of good governance in several countries in Africa, including particularly Somalia, Somalia begins to pick up. In today's Somalia, we are talking about a new president. Who elected the president? It's a very complex situation. 351 tribal head.
About 328.
No, 320.
But we noticed that four couldn't vote, or the results were mad.
There are 351 clans. Okay. Each of them have their heads.
Okay.
Those ethnic elders elect 1,400 delegates.
Yeah.
This is how the president is chosen. 1,400 delegates will now elect members of the House of the People, 275, and the Senate chamber, 54 members. Altogether, you have 328.
Yeah.
Now, it is those 328 that will now vote for a president. And the president will now appoint the prime minister and government, and president form government. The people have no role. The idea of the last time Somalia had universal suffrage, where people voted for their leader, was far back as 1959. That's when they chose their leader. So, what kind of democracy? See, democracy is something that is subject to abuse. Everybody is calling democracy.
But that's what the former president promised. That was what the former president promised.
And yes,
at the time, and by the year 2022, which is this year,
yes,
there's going to be, a democratic elections.
When it was time,
every Somalian will vote.
When it was time for him to implement that,
yes,
he was now interested in illegitimately extending his tenure.
Okay.
When it was not time to do that,
okay,
he was not interested.
So, I'll come back to you. Neville, you are a political analyst. Now, let's look at the introduction or intervention of the international, big powers, that is coming into play in Somalia, like the U.S., for instance, that is bringing its troops, to help boost the national army. Do you see this as a welcome development? Or do you tie along with the thoughts of Ibrahim Momo?
When we are talking of the international community, who is the international community and what is the international community? That is the question. Because countries, citizens of each country should learn to take the destiny of their country in their own hands without relying on one country they call United States, one country they call UK, or a group of countries they call European Union or African Union, as the case may be. Don't
forget the presence of terrorist groups.
I will give you an instance.
That are very organized.
Yes, I'm coming to the issue of the terrorist group. I will give you an instance. When President Ferdinand Marcos wanted to dominate in entirety the political and economic privileges of the Philippines, the people of Philippines rose up massively against the government. The man was in charge of the armed forces and the police. He got to a point, then Minister for Defense, Fidel Ramos, now mobilized the armed forces in favor of the people. That was how Corazon Aquino became president in the Philippines. And at the end of the day, a strong foundation was laid for a democratic takeoff that brought other presidents like Estrada, like Gloria Arroyo, and Aquino Jr., Aquino the Third, and now the son of that former president, Ferdinand Marcos, is now elected as president because of the stability of the country, economically and politically. Now, we move from there to the country they call Romania, when Nicolae Ceausescu was president, and the people protested against his government because his government was supported by default USSR and some other countries of the Warsaw Pact. When the armed forces saw the suffering of the people, they bowed to the pressure. And Nicola Ceausescu and his family were wiped out of existence. That is another example.
Okay,
now,
coming to Somalia.
Let's come to Somalia, and let's come to Nigeria, come to other African countries. We hear that there are terrorists, and we see that there are terrorists, and we see the destruction that terrorists are doing. These terrorists are either from the country or they are from neighboring countries, because it is on paper that we hear that there is a Federal Republic of Nigeria that is having boundary with Niger and Chad and Benin Republic and Cameroon. It is on paper. But when you get close to the border area, you will discover that Cameroonians that are living in the border, they don't see any difference. Who are speaking the same language with Nigerians on this side of the border. They intermarry, they do businesses together, they go to the same local market. The border between Nigeria and Cameroon, they don't see it. The same thing with Nigerians who come to Nigeria to come and do business in the border areas, they intermarry. While the Nigerians see themselves as Nigerians around that axis, the Nigerians also see themselves as Nigerians around that axis. So when you are talking of terrorists, this is how terrorists operate. The terrorists in Nigeria will rely on their friends.
Yes, they are a network.
Yes, so they come into Nigeria. If you can easily access them.
And the challenge is that you never see, reports have it that you never see them winning strongholds, but they keep weakening strongholds.
Yes. Now, but I asked the question, I said, where are the terrorists coming from? Who are the terrorists? The terrorists are our brothers. They are our sisters. But they are misguided. Why don't you put a machinery in place to deterrorize them? Let me use the word. To hypnotize them and make them to have the sense of not following the road of militarism or the road of terrorism.
Okay, but do you see a quick fix it? What you just saying now, do you see a quick fix it in this regard in the person of the new president, Hassan?
Well, in a couple of days, I may be writing a letter to the president of Somalia to encourage him. Yes, to advise him and to encourage him
on what he's going to be faced with.
On what he's going to be faced with, and the step that I should take to put Somalia on international positive limelight again. Now, as my co-discussor was saying, Somalia is more than Mogadishu, the capital. Somalia as a country extends up to Kenya. They have boundary with Kenya. Somalia as a country extends to Ethiopia. They have boundary with Ethiopia. Somalia as a country extends to Djibouti, which is Alpha and Isos. And a president that wants to rule and ensure that there is stability and economic prosperity of this country.
So spread his influence. Spread all over the swaths
across this country. But the president cannot do this without adhering himself into the hearts of these clan heads who are calling the shots in their various clans. Because if you do a study of the ungoverned spaces in Africa, whether in Nigeria, by the time you beam your research satellites on the ungoverned spaces in Nigeria, you are going to see the role of some traditional rulers in it.
Yes.
The role of some political leaders in it.
And the huge proportion of this space is
so if you see government, if you don't see government presence, you see a group of people dominating that area where there's no government presence. And if criminals are coming, whether criminals are coming in any guise, whether they are coming as a criminal Fulani S-men or criminal S-men, you will see that if you go to that community that is falling within the jurisdiction of an uncovered space, you will see the hand and the leg of either traditional ruler there or the politician there liaising with these people. So they don't just come from the blues and operate. They have a way of connecting.
So that's the much the president should be thinking of doing.
Yes,
as he plans to form his cabinet.
Yes.
Appoint the prime minister. There are a lot.
As a matter of fact, part of the things I want to write to the president is to let him look for the leaders of these of these ethnic groups outside of the clan heads to involve them in government.
Okay.
So that while the clan head will be there wanting to exhibit domineering attitude over the clan,
okay,
there is going to be a moderating effect, the balancing of the power of the clan that can bring stability and economic prosperity.
Thank you very much. It's still Africa Discourse, and I've been discussing with Nebilo Pakedo, a lecturer at University of Benin in the Political Science Department, and of course with a political economist who is Ibrahim Momo, and we've been on the Somalia's new president, talking about Hassan Mohamud, who just got into office and sworn in, and a lot they say he's faced with. The aspect of drought, the aspect of the war, you know, Al-Shabaab, terrorist groups that have taken about large swaths of the country. Well, I think this is where we also look at what was shared by Nebilo Pakedo and also by you, Ibrahim, where you said the dictatorial persons that were in such places like in Libya, for instance, and where you also made mention of the previous leader in Somalia that was a dictator. Thank you. Now, it seems, and it behoves everyone, that when a dictator, you know, is pushed out or taken out with the help of the international community, the country seems not to be the same again. So, giving the impression that the dictator should have been left alone, you know, to make the economy boom, like in the case of Libya and even Somalia. What do you have to say, Ibrahim?
Well, my challenge with your question is the use of the word dictator. It's often assumed, you know, it's only as a given that only term limits would allow for good governance. It's not exactly correct. I remember clearly that if the current immediate past Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, was there for 19 years, and if she wanted, she could have continued. So I'm not one of those. I mean, of course, you have people like Tony Blair, who ruled for 15 years as Prime Minister in the UK. Margaret Thatcher was 13 years. Of course, FDR or Franklin, Delano Roosevelt of the US, ruled and died in office, 15 years and died in office.
So you mean to say that long terms depends governance?
I don't think, the first point to make that, it's not about term limits. It's about performance. Another example we could draw is what we call the Asian tigers. Whether it is Indonesia, it is Thailand, it is Singapore, it is Malaysia, it is South Korea, it is Taiwan. These countries enjoy, not suffered, what you are calling dictators. People who stayed for very long time in position of authority.
Okay.
But in the case of Malaysia, he was there 35 years. Mahathir Mohamad. He was there 35 years. Don't talk of the Singaporean Lee Kuan Yew. You know, we have, for me, it is not an issue of term limits.
Okay.
That's not what it is. It's your behavior in office. Because again, in all sincerity, stability in governance allows for a program of development.
So are you saying that in your thoughts, are you suggesting that this person seemingly in the eyes of the world seen as dictators should have been left to deepen governance and have a very, very far-reaching effect?
I think that my own position is that it is not for the international community to determine for the people the tenure of office of leaders or the character or quality of leaders a country deserves. It is up to the indigents, the electorate, the citizens of every country to determine the character of governance. And oftentimes, what we are calling dictators, the Muammar Gaddafi, for example,
of Libya.
Libya under Gaddafi and Libya post Gaddafi is
quite different.
Daylight and sun. I know a lot of Nigerians in Benin here. I can mention like 5 persons I know personally who were traveling out. Their destination was Libya. That was under Muammar Gaddafi.
The oil-rich country.
Yes. Libya was a country, you know, you're talking about, people talk about Rwanda today. Libya was a country, a star boy in Africa of how mineral resources can better the life of the people. If people say that, talk about resource costs, you know, some of the, in my postgrad program, talk about resource costs, that oil, for example, has been a cost to Nigeria, for example. But in Libya, under Gaddafi, oil was a blessing.
people.
So it is not the term limit. It's not, I mean, two things there. It's not about the term limits, and it's not the duty of the quote-unquote international community, foreign powers, to determine who a leader of it. That is, if you are determining it for the people, that's comprado. That is lacking legitimacy.
And that's where they lose it.
That is where today's Somalia is suffering. What I know about the idea of the construct, I highlighted it earlier, of the 351 tribal leaders electing 1,400 delegates, who now elect a total of 328 two-house parliament. The House of the People, 205 members, and 54 members, the Senate chamber. All those processes were imposed as part of a peace deal, negotiated and midwifed by the international community.
Wow.
It is not autochthonous. The people of Somalia have not had, since 1959, have not had the chance to choose their leaders.
So you seem to tell me that, or tell us that Somalia has a long stretch of ways to go in this regard, in having this political development.
Regions are breaking out.
About the people's kind of government.
In fact, regions are breaking out of Somalia.
Wow.
There's a place called Somaliland. It's a part of Somalia, but it's not autonomous, so to say. It has its own administration. Within the same Somalia, in the map, it's not Somaliland. But in actual sense, there's a part of Somalia carved out called Somaliland. In place now. Again, you have the Al-Shabaab militant group. I don't even like the word militant. The Al-Shabaab terrorist group. They are holding large swathes of the country, the remaining part of the country, Somalia.
Okay.
Just before the very eyes of
Let's see if you share in the thoughts of Ibrahim Momo as regards tenureship, terms in office, helping to deepen governance, or like in the case of the dictatorship kind of government, Do you see blessings coming out in terms of the far-reaching good governance, the dividends, like in the case of Libya and even Somalia you just mentioned?
The problem is that human beings, they are not concerned, especially the masses of the people. They are not concerned about where the president is from, how many years he's going to spend in office. They are concerned about whether the president is performing the function of president that is putting food on their table. Everybody in the world, whether from Africa, from North America, South America, when China is sneezing now, everywhere in the world they are going to be catching cold.
Another example.
And that was where Mao Zedong in 1949 brought a communist government that laid the foundation for the prosperity of China, that everybody is not a delight to behold. As a matter of fact, when China is trying to emphasize and promote and assert her foreign policy, America will be catching cold. America and others, whether NATO, whether European Union, as the case may be. That is an example of several years of living, of being in the office without term limit. Even though after some years, Deng Xiaoping laid foundation for a 2-term limit of 5 years, which President Hu Jintao has gone to change again now. He has become a life president. He's going to be there till he dies.
Wow.
Another person to come. But the likes of Jiang Zemin and
Deng Xiaoping,
Hu Jintao, because Deng Xiaoping is late, they will not be happy with what Xi Jinping is doing, because they have the opportunity of remaining as life president.
Okay.
They left the state for him.
Okay.
Now, talking about whether we like term limit or not, he has already cited some examples. Let's start examples in Africa outside of the Libya that I said. If you go to Mozambique, is now part of Mozambique is now being held hostage by terrorists. When Samora Machel, as a socialist, was president, his government touched the nooks and crannies of the people. Those who are feeling disadvantaged, who are feeling marginalized now, who are not coming up now with terrorist tendency based on Islamic religion. They were there at that time, but they were given a sense of belonging. So there was no need for them to begin to take up arms to launch an attack against the state. That is that. It's the region that was controlled by Jonas Savimbi in Angola, when they were struggling with the MPLA of Dos Santos. You discover that in that region where they were in Angola, there was a kind of prosperity and governance that included everybody. But when they now saw that they were benefit they were going to get from the government of Dos Santos, they had to eliminate Jonas and Bibi for the war to come to an end.
So, sir.
The same international community that he was referring to. Today, France wants to do business with La Côte d'Ivoire. You go back and check the foundation, the economic foundation and prosperity of Côte d'Ivoire was laid by President Félix Houphouët-Boigny, who even moved the capital from Abidjan to Yamoussoukro, his hometown.
That's fantastic.
Then you now live there and go to Kenya. Countries all over the world, especially international community in Côte, they want to do business with Kenya. Why? Because the foundation for the economic prosperity of Kenya was laid by Nze Jomo Kenyatta. When he now died in the office, his vice president, Daniel Arap Moi, took over. And that was how later, because of the fact that people were now clamoring that Daniel Arap Moi and the Kenya African National Union was in power since independence, he needed a change. There was now a rainbow coalition that brought Mwai Kibaki, who became president.
Okay,
now, when
back to Somalia.
And
I quite admire your academic wits.
Now, when Kenya, I beg your pardon, Somalia cannot prosper, despite the fact that they have economic potentialities to dominate the Horn of Africa and the trans-Arab trade around that region.
Okay.
The only way they can prosper is to look inward and ensure that there is peace and stability in their country. This peace and stability cannot even take place, number one, without the role of the clan heads of the various clans in the country. This role cannot take place without involving Islamic clerics and dominant Muslim leaders in the country, because the country is a predominantly Muslim
country.
State.
Yeah, it is.
So, if all these things are not done, then the president will repeat the history of his former administration.
Okay. Let's see. Thank you very much. Like I said earlier, I reiterate, I quite admire your academic weights, taking us around those school of thoughts. Now, let's look at this logically. And Nigeria is also planning and preparing, like what the president did say, also in assisting Somalia, in terms of the security, architecture, and all that. Now, some see this as laughable, but should we see it like that, Ibrahim?
Well, one, it is laughable, and two, it is not.
Okay.
Laughable because and there's this famous Arab quote says, "Fakidu shein la yuti."
Meaning,
what you don't have,
you can't give.
Very simple. Fakidu shein la yuti. What you don't have, you can't give. And we want to promote stability and peace in Somalia. Is there stability and peace in Nigeria?
But we have more of it here, so that's why the president thinks we have it.
No. We are seeing different groups.
Okay.
Whether it is in the northwest, what they are calling bandits, which government are now called terrorists, or the Boko Haram, which in the northeast, which the government has also called terrorists, or it is IPOD in the southeast, which the government again has now called terrorists.
Yeah.
We are seeing the upsurge of terrorist groups all over the country. Fulani headers, the criminal, to quote the Coneville, criminal Fulani headers, not all headers are criminals, but the criminal ones among them, who are also riding roughshod over our body politic. Nigeria is a country not really at peace. How do you foster, promote peace in Somalia when Nigeria is not at peace? The second point to make on that is that indeed Nigeria deserves to be what it is, the big brother of Africa. Nigeria's interests must naturally go beyond its borders. That's how America is interested in everything happening, even in Somalia. The most critical stakeholder in Somalia today is the US. So Nigeria has an obligation, because of its status in Africa,
yes, of course,
to be interested in what happens in Somalia. But it has to first promote its local national security, its national cohesion.
So in that light, you see the president remarks as a pitchy-patchy remarks?
And that I say, well, it is laughable in one instance because we have not been able to achieve that locally, but it's also a serious issue.
Okay.
I think it's only a strategic foreign policy thinking.
Okay.
The government should be thinking in that regard.
Thank you. Can you give the president the kudos in that as per Somalia?
The reason why it will be difficult for me to give the president kudos in that regard is this. One of the reasons why the president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Nigeria was voted in 2015 was because of the security situation in the country, outside of the economic aspects. Number one, that he was general officer commanding 3rd Division of the Nigerian Army. And during that period, there were Matasini religious disturbances, and he was able to quell them using his brigade and his foot soldiers around that division.
So he has this in his credit?
Yes. Now, it was during his period that the Cameroonian Jedans killed Nigerian soldiers around the border, and there was a retaliation from the Nigerian Armed Forces, still under his leadership. Today, we have the same man who was a former head of state, and now head of state again, and president and commander-in-chief.
Which is a big plus.
Yes, and today, we see that the state, the home state of the president, which is Katsina State, even while the president is on holidays in his own state, you will see bandits, terrorists coming to attack various communities in that place. Okay. And yet, you go and check the budget of Nigerian Armed Forces.
Okay, drive your points home. Drive your points home.
Now, as he rightly observed just now, number one, Nigeria is a big brother, and they have been using and deploying the big brother diplomacy to go to Mali, to go to Sierra Leone, to go to Liberia, to go to Darfur, and even beyond Africa. Just for the whole world to know that Nigeria is a power to reckon with in Africa. No doubt about that.
No doubt about
that.
But okay.
Nigeria, as it is presently constituted, Nigeria is like a country that is sitting on the keg of gunpowder. But by the time you look at what is happening in the southeast,
okay,
the brutality, the killings, and the macabre dance of some militia in that area.
Thank you.
And you go to northeast and other places, as I said just now, you see that Nigeria is a country that is on fire.
So
the president and commander
you do not support the remarks?
No, okay. I'm not saying you do not support. Why try to support Somalia? Should also first of all do its own work to ensure that the peace and stability in Nigeria. Because while Nigeria is helping other countries, Nigeria needs political stability and economic prosperity. We need it. The other day, the president sent some billions of dollars to Afghanistan.
Thank you.
They also need
You've said much. Thank you. Just like the saying goes that charity begins at home. Big thanks to you, Neville Obakelo. Quite excellent and smart ideas and thoughts on this show. And big thanks to you, Ibrahim Momo. Quite pragmatic issues that you placed on hold, that you really dealt with on this show. I must say that I am really grateful for having this on this show. Well, this month we can take on this is Africa Discourse, and we do this on the next one. I've been the host, Philip Omo. Goodbye.